They made her scrub the marble floor while a ballroom full of millionaires stepped around her like she was a smudge they couldn't wait to forget. Music drifted from a string quartet, soft, angelic, impossibly delicate. Their bows glided across the violin strings while champagne flutes clinked and diamonds glittered in the chandelier's fire. It was the type of room people fought their whole lives to be invited into. But not her. In this world, she was the help, expected to be silent, invisible, bendable. "Careful," a woman in a backless gold gown said loudly to her friends as she passed, pointing at Amara with her glass. "Don't trip on her. She blends into the floor." Laughter rippled through the ballroom. Amara kept scrubbing, eyes down, back straight, face quiet. Her hands moved in slow, practiced circles across the cold marble. She didn't flinch, didn't respond, didn't give them the show they wanted. But the humiliation wasn't done, because then he walked in. Landon Sterling, the sterling heir, the golden boy, the media's darling. Women swooned when he entered a room like he was born sculpted. Men admired him. Old money adored him. And he adored himself even more. He strolled across the ballroom like he owned not just the estate, but the air everyone breathed in it. He held a champagne flute loosely, as if the world existed to keep it filled. When he saw Amara kneeling on the floor, he grinned. "Still on your hands and knees, Amara?" he asked loudly, making sure everyone heard. "Make sure you get that spot." "No, there, you missed it." He pointed to a place she had already scrubbed. Guests snickered. Someone whispered, "This is entertainment." Another chuckled, "She probably thinks this is her big moment." Amara kept wiping. He leaned down just slightly, just enough for a private insult delivered publicly. "No, your place." The words dripped with contempt. She didn't look at him. If she did, she wasn't sure whether she'd cry or speak. And crying was weakness, and speaking was danger. "But I want to ask you something. Have you ever been treated so small that the world refused to imagine you had a story?" The Sterling estate was a kingdom of wealth. Multiple wings, countless rooms, imported marble, priceless art, and gardens manicured by professionals who charged more than most people's monthly rent. Guests arrived in black cars, silk gowns, and tailored tuxedos. Old money, new money, inherited money, hidden money. It all gathered here like a ceremony of entitlement. The rules were simple. The wealthy floated, the servants vanished. The maids, especially the black ones, were shadows. No one prepared Amara for how invisible she'd become working there. Landon Sterling especially loved reminding her. He was arrogant in a way only generational wealth can create, raised to believe he was chosen, gifted, destined. He never opened a door for himself, never cleaned up after himself, never heard the word no unless it came from his lawyers. He looked at staff like they were broken furniture someone forgot to replace. To him, they were props, background, scenery. But Amara? Amara wasn't born into scenery. Her life before the Sterling estate was filled with emergencies and scraped knees and working hands. She came from a home where turning on the lights was a monthly prayer, where medicine was a luxury, where second hand was first choice. She was the eldest daughter, the one her mother relied on, the one who learned early how to stretch a dollar until it cried. Her brother drifted down the wrong path. Her mother worked until her bones hurt. And Amara, quiet, observant, dutiful, picked up shifts and held the family together. Cleaning houses wasn't her dream. It was her duty, her survival. But beneath the uniform, she carried a gift no one noticed. a mind that saw everything. Patterns, inconsistencies, words left unsaid, papers left out of place, voices behind walls, behaviors that didn't add up. She remembered everything she read, could mimic writing styles, noticed things people hid, caught details others missed. She was exactly the kind of person the rich didn't want paying attention. Which is why the universe placed her in the one room where her eyes would change everything. It started the night of the gala. A waiter dropped a tray of wine glasses near the study door. The house manager shrieked and shoved Amara forward. "Clean it now, before guests see." She hurried toward the study with her bucket. But as she approached, she realized the door was cracked open. Inside, the lights were low. The heir's voice drifted out in a hiss. "No, listen to me." Landon snapped into his phone. "If this gets out, everything collapses. I don't care what strings you have to pull. Make it disappear." He paced, breath sharp. Papers lay scattered across the desk behind him. "I told you to handle it," he continued. 82 million is not pocket change." Amara's eyes widened. 82 million. He slammed the phone down. "If anyone finds out, I'm finished," he growled. He grabbed a stack of documents, stuffed them into a drawer, and yanked it shut. Hard. Too hard. A corner of a page caught. He didn't notice. He stormed out of the study and brushed past Amara without seeing her at all. When he disappeared down the hallway, Amara entered the room and saw it. The papers sticking out of the drawer. The envelope half sunken beneath the rug. She should have ignored it. She didn't. She pulled the envelope free, and her breath froze. An official seal. A fraud investigation notice. Her eyes raced over the text. Unauthorized transfer of $82 million. Forgery, federal offense, imminent action pending. Another document, half visible in the drawer, showed numbers that didn't make sense unless someone had been shifting money in circles to hide it. Someone like Landon Sterling. Her hand trembled. She heard footsteps coming back. She shoved everything in place and slipped out into the hall, heart pounding. For the rest of the night, she scrubbed floors while her mind pieced together the truth. The rich heir wasn't arrogant because he was secure. He was arrogant because he was terrified. And she, the maid he mocked, had seen the one thing he wanted hidden. By the next morning, the estate swirled with tension. Federal investigators arrived. The board of Sterling Industries rushed to the mansion demanding answers. Landon swaggered out to greet them, mask back in place. "What's the issue?" he asked, voice dripping disdain. One investigator held up a warrant. "Open your study drawer." Landon paled but forced a smirk. "If you insist." He unlocked it. The drawer was empty. Completely empty. The documents she had seen were gone. Landon's grin returned. "Looks like your information is flawed." "Search the house," the agent ordered. "You have no jurisdiction. We do." Agents swept the home. They found nothing, because Landon hadn't destroyed the evidence. He'd hidden it, badly. That evening, while Amara dusted the hallway, she overheard him in the private lounge. "No one can find it," he hissed. "I hid it myself." He shoved another envelope behind the bar cart, another into the fireplace grate, another under the sofa. Amara pressed her back to the wall. He was unraveling, and unraveling men make dangerous enemies. The next day, the investigators returned with more force. The board demanded progress. Lawyers circled like vultures. Landon pointed at Amara in front of everyone. "She had access," he said loudly. "She was alone in my study. Maybe she moved something." A ripple of suspicion spread. Amara felt her throat tighten. Then one investigator spoke. "We checked the security footage." Landon froze. The agent pressed play. The screen revealed Landon Sterling at midnight, sneaking into the study with a flashlight, removing documents, stuffing them into envelopes, hiding them. The board erupted. "You lied. You stole millions. You tried to blame the staff. You disgrace this company." Landon stumbled backward. "That isn't... I can explain." "No," an investigator said. "You can't." He was escorted out of his family estate in front of everyone he once towered over like royalty. It should have ended there. But the twist wasn't finished. Because one board member asked Amara gently, "How did you know something was wrong before we did?" She hesitated. "I noticed things." "Like what?" Amara stepped forward, walked to the lounge, bent down, reached under the sofa, then pulled out the first envelope. Gasps shook the room. She moved again, to the fireplace, the bar cart, the bookshelf. Envelope after envelope after envelope. Every piece of incriminating evidence Landon thought he'd hidden forever. Silence fell. The deepest silence the estate had ever known. And in that silence, the chairman said, "Miss Amara, you just saved this company." And that was only the beginning. The room looked different now. It was the same Sterling lounge, the same velvet chairs, same marble fireplace, same skyline windows. But the atmosphere had changed completely. Every board member's gaze was on Amara, not with disdain, not with dismissal, with something closer to awe. The investigator flipped through the documents she recovered, jaw tightening. "These are exactly what we were searching for. These match the digital trail. Without these, the case could have taken months." One board member exhaled sharply. "She found what the investigators couldn't." Another whispered, "And she wasn't even trying." Landon's mother, elegant in pearls, collapsed into a chair, staring at the envelopes like they were shards of her son's reputation. But even she couldn't look at Amara with anything but reverent disbelief. Amara took a small step back, suddenly overwhelmed by all the eyes on her. She was still wearing her maid's uniform, her hair still tied in a simple bun. Her hands still smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. She clasped them behind her back to hide the tremble. The chairman stepped forward. "Miss Amara," he began carefully, "you have just prevented a billion-dollar catastrophe." Her throat tightened. She forced herself to breathe. "Sir, I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just saw things others didn't." The lead investigator interjected. "No, you noticed patterns. You caught anomalies. You identified hiding spots based on behavioral cues. That's not nothing, that's talent." She dropped her gaze. Compliments felt louder in this room. Heavier, like she wasn't supposed to receive them. But the chairman wasn't done. "What would you say," he continued slowly, "if we offered you a role at Sterling Industries?" Her head snapped up. "Me, sir?" A few board members nodded encouragingly. "We could use eyes like yours," said one. "Someone who sees details the rest of us overlook," said another. "Someone who can prevent this from ever happening again," said a third. The chairman folded his hands behind his back. "A position in compliance," he explained. "We'll train you, advise you, give you the tools you need. Your salary will increase accordingly." Silence. Her heart thudded against her ribs. She thought of her mother, whose medical bills piled up like fallen leaves. Her little sister, barely scraping by in community college. Her brother, trying to rebuild his life. Her never-ending rent notices. her tired legs after every shift. She thought of her own dreams, quiet ones she'd tucked into corners of her soul because life told her she would never reach them. And then she found her voice. "Yes," she whispered. "I'd be honored." The chairman smiled warmly. "Welcome to Sterling Industries." For the first time in the estate's history, staff applauded in the presence of board members. A few even teared up. Amara felt the applause like waves crashing against the walls of everything she had endured. But she wasn't prepared for what happened next. The chairman added, "Effective immediately." She stared. Today. Sir, I'm still in my uniform." He cut her off. "You've earned this right now, Amara. And we won't wait another hour to acknowledge that." A ripple of pride washed through her chest. The house manager, who'd barked orders at her for months, looked at her with a mixture of terror and envy. The other maids stared from the hallway, hands over their mouths, whispering prayers of joy under their breath. But the moment she would remember for the rest of her life happened when she left the lounge. The Sterling matriarch, the woman who once acted like Amara's presence tainted the room, walked toward her slowly. For a moment, Amara panicked. Was she angry? Insulted? About to lash out? But instead, the woman stopped 2 feet away, eyes glistening with something Amara had never seen on her face: humility. "I misjudged you," she said quietly. "Terribly so." Amara didn't know how to respond. The Sterling matriarch took her hand gently. "Thank you for saving us." Amara nodded awkwardly, overwhelmed. No one, not once in her life, had thanked her like this. People often assumed gratitude was simple, but receiving it, truly receiving it, felt like a storm inside her chest. By the next morning, everything changed. Amara walked into Sterling Industries' downtown headquarters, not through the service entrance, but through the front doors. Security waved her through. The receptionist greeted her by name. They handed her a temporary badge and escorted her upstairs. The elevator ride felt surreal. She stared at her reflection in the mirrored walls. Her posture different, her eyes brighter, her spine straightened by something deeper than confidence. Purpose. Her new supervisor, Mr. Aldrich, met her at the elevator. "Welcome to your first day," he said warmly. He wasn't faking it. She could tell. He guided her through the compliance floor, rows of desks, giant screens tracking real-time data, analysts in sleek business attire tapping furiously on keyboards, discussing audits and financial trails and risk assessments with serious expressions. Amara felt like she'd stepped into another universe. But she belonged here. She felt it. They started with training modules. The language was dense, terms like forensic accounting, cross-border audit requirements, regulatory reporting. But she absorbed everything fast, her mind connecting complex dots effortlessly. On the third day, Aldrich handed her a thick binder. "Try to flag any inconsistencies," he said gently. "Take your time." She finished in 10 minutes. "There are 12, she said, returning the binder. He blinked. 12 what? "Inconsistencies," she replied, "and 3 possible signs of internal fraud. Here, page 42, line 15, also page 57, and page 89. Someone tried to hide a transfer, but the timestamp overlap reveals it." Aldrich stared at her like she'd just performed magic. By the second week, executives asked for her opinion. By the third, managers requested her directly. By the fourth, they treated her less like a trainee and more like a secret weapon. One afternoon, the chairman called her into his office, a breathtaking corner room with floor-to-ceiling windows. The skyline stretched endlessly behind him. He gestured for her to sit. "How are you adjusting?" he asked. She looked out at the city below, cars moving like currents, people rushing like they were a part of an orchestra she was finally allowed to hear. "I'm grateful," she said honestly. "As are we," he replied. "You've done more in weeks than most people do in years." She swallowed hard. No one had ever said something like that to her. He placed a folder on the desk. "In here," he said, "is your permanent contract. Full benefits, full salary, and a promotion to junior compliance officer." Her chest tightened. "Sir, I don't have the degrees other officers do." He smiled. "You have what they don't," he said. "Instinct, precision, courage, and a mind made for this work." Her hands trembled as she accepted the folder. "And one more thing," he added. "We're adding you to a special project, a high-level audit. You'll assist the top team." "Me?" she whispered. "Yes," he said, "you." When she returned home that night, she walked into her small apartment with trembling hands. Her mother sat at the table sorting through bills. She looked up, confused by the tears on Amara's face. "What is it, baby?" she asked softly. Amara placed the folder on the table. Her mother opened it, saw the salary, the benefits, the promotion, the title. Her mother covered her mouth with both hands. "Oh, Amara," she whispered, "you did it." Amara knelt beside her, buried her face in her mother's lap, and finally let the tears fall. "I found something I wasn't supposed to find," she said through sobs. "And it changed everything." Her mother stroked her hair gently. "No, baby. You changed everything." And she was right, because the final test of Amara's brilliance came weeks later, when Sterling Industries underwent a full external audit. The auditors, stern and intimidating, requested every file, every report, every discrepancy. Executives braced for bad news. Amara reviewed 1,200 pages in 2 nights. When the auditors delivered their report, they said something no one at Sterling had heard in years. "Your compliance division is impeccable. Someone on your team is exceptionally skilled." Amara sat quietly in the back of the room. The chairman glanced at her, eyes shining. Landon Sterling's legacy had been corruption. Hers would be integrity. The room applauded the audit results. Investors regained confidence. The company's stock rose. Employees celebrated. And in the middle of it all, unnoticed by most, but not by the people who mattered, stood Amara, the maid who found the truth, the woman who saved an empire, the mind that saw what wealth tried to hide. But her story wasn't finished yet. The real climax, the one fate had been saving, was still coming. 2 months after the audit, the company held its annual shareholder gala, a grand affair hosted not at the Sterling estate, but at a towering downtown ballroom glittering with chandeliers and carved with gold trim. The room overflowed with the kind of luxury only corporations with endless pockets could afford. Strings of pearls draped across, evening gowns, rare wines poured into crystal, conversations carried by voices that had never been told no. Amara stood near the back of the room, quietly observing. She wore a simple navy dress, borrowed, not bought. Her hair was in soft curls. She held no champagne. She had no jewelry except a thin silver bracelet her mother had given her years ago. She was painfully aware she didn't blend in. But this time, that didn't bother her. People recognized her, whispered her name, nodded respectfully as she passed. A few greeted her warmly. The staff rushed to serve her with a kind of politeness normally reserved for executives. It felt surreal. walking the same kind of ballroom where she once scrubbed floors, now standing as a valued employee. But the night wasn't done teaching her lessons about visibility. Midway through the event, the crowd hushed as a ripple of murmurs rose near the doors. Landon Sterling had arrived, escorted by his lawyers, dressed in a suit less expensive than he used to wear, his shoulders slightly hunched, his eyes dark with shame that had only deepened with every headline about his downfall. He wasn't supposed to attend. His presence alone set the room buzzing. He has some nerve showing up. Is he out on bail? Why would he come here? What does he want? Amara stiffened as he scanned the crowd, and then found her. His expression flickered. Not with anger, not with arrogance, but with something she never thought she'd see on his face. Fear. He walked toward her slowly. The room parted around him. Reporters leaned forward. Executives watched carefully, unsure whether to intervene. Landon stopped 2 feet from her. For the first time in his life, he lowered his voice when speaking to someone he'd considered beneath him. "Why did you do it?" he asked quietly. His voice cracked around the edges. "Do what?" Amara replied, her tone steady. "Why didn't you destroy the evidence when you found it?" His jaw tightened. "You could have hidden it, burned it, helped me." She stared at him, unwilling to let him rewrite the truth. "You hid the evidence," she said, "not me." "You found it," he insisted. "You could have walked away." She tilted her head slightly. "You could have too." His breath hitched. For a moment the ballroom, filled with glittering wealth and gilded lies, fell away, and it was just the two of them, the heir and the maid, the liar and the truth. "You ruined my life," he whispered. "No," she said softly. "You ruined your life. I just didn't cover it up." His eyes glistened for a fraction of a second, not with tears, but with the realization that this woman, this maid he'd humiliated without thought, now stood as the immovable wall he could not climb. Landon stepped back, defeated, broken in the way only a man raised to believe he was untouchable could be broken. Security guided him toward the exit. His mother watched him go with a hollow expression. The reporters swarmed behind, the doors closed, and that chapter, his chapter, ended. The chairman approached Amara immediately. "Are you all right?" he asked. She gave a short nod. "I'm fine." He smiled softly. "Then let's give you the moment you deserve." He led her toward the stage. She froze. "Wait, I didn't prepare." "You don't need to," he said. "Just be yourself." A spotlight found her. The room quieted. The chairman addressed the crowd. "Tonight, we celebrate more than financial recovery. We celebrate integrity, courage, and a woman whose vigilance saved this company." He turned toward her. "Amara, please join me." A wave of murmurs spread. People clapped softly, then louder, as she stepped up. Her heart pounded in her ears. Her palms were damp, her breath caught. She wasn't used to being seen like this, centered like this. But she lifted her chin anyway. The chairman continued. "Amara is not simply our new director of compliance. She is the reason we uncovered internal corruption, passed our audit, regained investor trust, and strengthened our internal systems. She showed us the truth." He paused. "And she did all this after we spent years treating her as invisible." Gasps. Someone in the crowd muttered, "My God." Another whispered, "We never even asked her last name." The chairman faced her. "Would you like to say a few words?" She hadn't planned on speaking. But stories, real stories, don't wait for scripts. So she approached the microphone. For a moment, the ballroom spun. Then she inhaled. I used to scrub these floors, she began softly. In this same kind of room. In this same kind of crowd. A few people looked down, ashamed. I was told to stay quiet, to stay out of sight, to stay in my place. Her voice hardened. But I learned something working for people who never looked at me. When no one sees you, you see everything. Silence. Deep, waiting silence. I noticed what others didn't, she continued. I saw the truth because I wasn't distracted by status or titles or ego. I noticed the smallest details because no one thought I was watching. She looked out at them, at the chandeliers, the gowns, the polished shoes. At first, I thought invisibility was a curse, but I realized it was a gift. It allowed me to see people for who they really are. Cameras flashed, executives swallowed hard. Some nodded, some avoided her eyes. And now, she said softly, I'm here not because I demanded a place in this room, but because I refused to ignore what was wrong. She stepped back from the microphone. The applause started slowly, then grew, then roared so loudly it shook the glass walls. She didn't cry. She didn't smile big. She simply stood still, quiet, poised, dignified, while the world finally recognized the brilliance it had once stepped over without a glance. Later that night, she left the gala early. The noise, the praise, the lights, it was overwhelming. She stepped outside into the cool night air, inhaling deeply. A gentle breeze pushed her curls back. The city lights flickered. A car honked in the distance. And for the first time since childhood, she allowed herself to believe a new truth. She was no longer surviving. She was rising. And rising had never felt so quiet, so steady, so earned. As she walked home under the streetlights, she reflected on everything that brought her here. The long nights, the scrubbing, the humiliation, the fear, the secret she found, the courage to face it. And she thought, if dignity is a flame, then injustice is the wind that makes it burn brighter. Because the people the world tries hardest to make invisible are often the ones meant to change it. And the rich heir who hid the truth, he became the proof of a different story. The one that says power doesn't belong to those who shout the loudest, but to those who see the quiet things. The things that matter. The things that can't be hidden. Not forever. Not from eyes like hers. Not from a maid who saw everything.